deity! Is this not why you were here?
Ooh, lucky bastard.
Are you being sarcastic or something, my son?
Fool, you should never mix your drinks.
What are you, retarded?
We'll have to take this abuse much longer.
You're a fool! You're a fool! You're a fool!
Oh, that's what we call diarrhea.
You think this is a fucking joke? This ain't Kenny camera. There's no hidden cameras.
Oh shit, I've said fuck. Oh fuck, I've said shit.
Don't be an arse. Get a weapon collector class.
I could knock him out in the shed.
Are you kidding me? That is crazy.
Stop it, please. For God's sake, please stop it. There's no more time.
Is this not why you were here?
Right, everyone. WeaponCollector here. Welcome to my Halloween special. So for those who have never watched these before, this is going to be a 3-hour premiere, which is essentially a live stream just with a pre-recorded video. And what we do for Halloween is get members of the streams and the viewers to send in their content, all horror related, Halloween related, stuff like that. And it's really good fun. You get a lot of different range of videos. Some will be funny, some will be pure horror, some are book readings, videos that people have made. Some of them can be quite poignant and sad, and often they are true stories, some made up and some local sort of myths and stuff like that. But yeah, it's really good fun, and you will get to see lots of channels that you may not know about, which is what I've always liked to do on my channel. I've always wanted to share with you the channels that I like and the people I talk to, give them a bit of publicity, get their name out there, and that's what we're doing. So quite a few people have joined in. I've literally just edited this and now I'm doing the intro for it. So it means some of the videos, it's the first time I've seen them. They're really good. They're all really good and they always are, but yeah, I love it. I've added a couple of Spyro files and Spiroverse stuff in there. That is to advertise the Saturday Spyro premiere, which is coming up as well. So you've got quite a good week this week. You've got today, which is Thursday, you've got the Halloween special, and Saturday you've got a 4-hour Spiroverse special, which will be the whole entire first series of the Spyro files. And that will show episode 6 first, and then it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 again, so you can watch the whole series afterwards. And we can have a chat, same as you can have a chat on this. Right, let's get down to it then, shall we? There's plenty of content here, and yeah, I think you should really enjoy it, right? I'll see you at the end. See you later. Enjoy yourselves.
I'm going to tell you a tale of my grandma's haunted house. It's all very true. It's a story of what I recognise and what I've lived through, being there as a young child and everything like that, growing up in that house and what I've experienced there and what the stories I've heard and all the rest of it. So I'm going to start with this. Anyway, my grandma's house is on the A30 in Cornwall, a little village called Marisonvaux. It's an old Quaker's cottage, and they moved into it just after the war, so I know it's a family home from when I was a little kid. And the first story I've got to tell you is when me and my brother we used to stay there quite often, and when I was a baby in my mum's arms we used to live there as well. But I can remember this particular time when we were sat around the table in the morning having our breakfast, and my mum was in the house, just me and my brother. And my brother looked over to the bathroom, which was like we were in this dining room, and there was a door to a bathroom area. We only had a bath in there, no toilet, because the toilet was in the garden. Anyway, and it's got a little window in this bathroom, and my brother was looking around and goes, "Hey Bob," he goes, "Somebody's looking through the window." I said, "Is there?" I didn't see it. I said, "Did you see someone look through the window?" He goes, "Yeah, I saw someone look through the window." It's like, "Oh, interesting." And he goes, and then Mum goes, "Oh, what did he look like? Was it Grandad? Is he in the garden?" He goes, "No, looks like the man on the box that, the Quaker oat box that we were eating porridge oat box. He looks like the man from that." We're like, "What?" Just like looking through the window like this, you could see his hat, like that through just an outline. Anyway, so that was one of our first encounters of what we now look back as a paranormal visit, you know. Anyway, lots of things have happened in the house, including that my mum lost her brother in the house. He committed suicide, dropped himself at 12 ball. Another story, but my mum was there and my dad was there at the time when they were married, and it was not very nice scene and all the rest of it. So yeah, so bad things happened there. But as I grew up, knowing all these things that happened in this house has always been in the family. So I was probably 3-4 years old, my brother being about 6 at the time when we sat around this table. Anyway, years gone past and growing up and stuff like that, we hear various stories like the cars crashing on the A30 and people, like, there's a car accident right outside the front door and a Range Rover, or not Range Rover, but a Land Rover smashed through the front door and all the people in the car were killed. That happened outside the house as well. So, you know, very weird events have happened over the time. Anyway, so other things that I can remember from times I've been in the house were that the front room was through like a panel door, an old wooden panel door, and go into a hallway, very narrow hallway, steep staircase, and then it'd go into a lounge area. And in that lounge area, it was very kept neat. You know, back then, my grandma was really proud of her front room with the settee and all the rest of it. She had an electric organ in the corner, so I used to be like quite musical. So I used to go, right, Granny, can I go in the front room and play the organ? She go, yeah, no worries, switch it on, you know, and have a good time. So I thought, right, okay, give it a go. I was probably about, 9 years old at this time. So I sat there, sitting at the keyboard as you do, you know, playing a few tunes, just messing around, learning a few things. Couldn't read music at the time. I just like messed about. And anyway, I stopped because I felt somebody do that and push down on my shoulder, and I looked up, but there was nobody there. I was like, oh, freaked me out. I ran out that front room, ran into the dining area. The table is, and there's a few chairs and a big fire there as well, and the door that goes off to the bathroom where my uncle killed himself, and then it goes off to another doorway through the little narrow passage around the back of all that, which is a kitchen. I ran into the front room, sat down in front of her, and said, Granny, you won't believe this. Somebody just touched me on the shoulder, and I looked up and there's nobody there. She's like, oh, you sure you didn't imagine? I was like, no, I felt it. It was really weird. That's why I ran in, because it scared me. So anyway, so that was another encounter at the time. Now, other things have happened in that time where my granny has lived there, and she told me stories about, she saw a little girl in the garden. Still there to this day. My auntie owns the house. My grandma has passed away, but she always kept hold of that house, knowing that there was something not quite right in the house. It always had an horrible feeling when you walk in. It's dark, it's low ceilings, you could hear things creaking. I can remember another time, being a little bit older, probably about 12 years old, and I went to stay in the bedroom where my auntie's bedroom, and I stayed there while she was away on my own. My granny was downstairs with the dog, and I can remember going to bed, and I took my torch with me, because that's the sort of thing you do anyway. You sort of like, yeah, get your torch, you might have a magazine, and reading your comic, you know, under the bedclothes, kind of like, oh yeah, what's going on? Anyway, turned my torch off, started to go to sleep, just about to lie over and just put my head on the pillow, and the light came on in the bedroom. Boom, bing, came on, and it switched off again. And I thought, oh, what the hell's that? Scared the shit out of me. Under the bed, I hid under the covers, going, that's not right. So I put my torch on, breathing like hell, you know, hyperventilating, almost needing to get some air from under the blankets, you know, just to sort of breathe a bit more. But my heart rate was racing still, knowing that wasn't right, that shouldn't have happened, you know. And I was just brave and getting the energy to be brave and run downstairs. And when I did, I just legged it down. I said, Granny, I'm not sleeping in that bedroom. Light came on, I'm staying down here with you and the dog. Can I sleep on the chair? And the Labrador was like, yeah, I'll keep you company, Bob. You're all right, no worries, you know. So I was like, whew. So I stayed down there, and it freaked me out. But my Aunt Granny was telling me stories back. She's been there in the house, and you know, she's experienced seeing little girl, very little tiny girl in a white dress up the garden, sort of smiling, just playing in the garden. She sort of saw that. She thought, oh, this place is obviously haunted. She's seen it. She can feel these things and pick up on these things. Never really told us much, but only good little stories, you know, that she said, basically. And one day she saw this girl standing at the foot of a bed, and we found out a little bit later on that she told us when we grew up a bit more, you know. But anyway, never had any more, heard any more stories from them, but other than knockings on the doors, and you go to the door and nobody was there to answer, you know, you answer the door, there's nobody there. But this road, the A30, is a very dangerous road, lots of cars, accidents, people dying in this particular stretch of road all the time, very unusual, you know, but it's very known as a hot spot for accidents anyway. So yeah, getting to bits some more other stuff that's happened in the house, sort of stories. Obviously my grandma saw visions of a young girl, and she asked her neighbour, because he's a really old fellow and he lived in that village for a long time, she goes, oh, I keep seeing this girl, can you give me any information about it? He goes, well, there was a young lady that lived in the house but got killed by a horse down the back lane, and so she probably was connected to that house, possibly lived there, you know, because it's a very old house. So that's another little strange thing. These little things happen. So yeah, moving on, sort of a bit more into the future now, where we are getting closer to where we are now. Really, is like my nan. After a few more years, the house was needing to be updated, but because it was listed and stuff, they couldn't change the outside of the looking of the house. It had to stay as it was, but they managed to pull it all down inside. But when the builders were there, they had some very funny, very odd occasions when they would put tools down and they couldn't find them, and they would be like spanners, well not spanners, but screwdrivers would be found on the other side of the room when they've just been working and stuff. Again, a bit odd. But the strangest story that my grandma told me was the fact when they nearly finished and the builder lost his toolbox. He couldn't find it anyway. He looked in the outbuildings, he looked in the house, couldn't find it. Anyway, they were going like, right, let's so see if we can get up in the loft and have a look. Anyway, they were trying to get up to the loft, which is up this like steep, narrow staircase, and it splits off then into like three little rooms. One that double room that side, and a little back room around the back through that way. But this loft hatch is just above the little landing. Anyway, they were trying to push this loft hatch up after doing all the work up in the loft. They couldn't get it budged. They managed to budge it, bang. But what was stopping it was the fact that the builder's toolbox was on top of the loft hatch. They couldn't get in. So how the hell that got up there and stopped that to, you know, that was another mystery. So that was another weird thing. So the builders were there for quite a while, about, you know, they were there probably about a good 8 months to a year doing the house up, rebuilding it from the inside out and stuff like that. Didn't find any artifacts in the walls or anything like that, just ripped out the old fireplaces, all the wooden panelling and all the rest of it, and kind of changed it inside. But I think it disturbed the air and all the makeup of the house. But my granny was there for a while. She passed away, not in the house but at hospital, but it was left then to my auntie. And my auntie refused to stay there after that. She rented it out, and I don't know whether the other tenants have had any paranormal activities since then, you know, but I'm pretty sure something was amiss to anyone that moved into the house. You could feel it when you walked in. There was a real dark, heavy presence in that building. That even when you was out in the garden, you felt that somebody was watching you. If I was, when I was little, I used to go out in the workshops with my granddad, and he would go off to the house, and he would leave me in the shed, and I'd be like looking beyond my shoulder thinking, somebody watching me. You feel that something's watching you. It's really, really eerie, not very nice feeling. But anyway, so the only strange thing after that was the fact that there was a really bad accident on that A30 road. It was probably back in the 2012, around that sort of time. And this couple in a car, the story that I was told was the fact that they had a head-on collision with a lorry coming down the hill, as if like they were trying to avoid something in the road and to not hit something. And I was thinking, and what my mum told me, she goes, maybe it was the child that my grandma saw in the when she was alive at the end of her bed or in the garden, standing in the road perhaps, which these people saw, and they tried to avoid it, and they hit the lorry and lost their lives, you know. And that's the only things that I can say that's ever happened since then, and nothing else to this day. But how strange is that all these weird things have happened there. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my spooky, kind of freaky story, but it's something that's always haunted me. That's something I always live with, knowing those things have happened in that house. Yeah, there's a very bad vibe there, and it's never been dispelled. No exorcists have been performed there or anything like that. But if you ever went there, you would feel something's watching you. Anyway, thanks so much for listening to my story about the house Elmsley Cottage at Marylebone in Cornwall on the A30. Thank you.
Our Spyro mission today is to investigate a phenomenon known as a gory hole.
That's the funnest place to be.
Psycho in there.
9,
We are reading.
5,
Our species are.
Climb,
Your species are dead.
climb,
Alien gangsters been through a fair share of disasters. We're the masters, we're the blasters, don't try us or we'll put you out to pasture. Make no mistake, we'll break off your arms, cause you all sorts of harm, and when we're done, send you out to the stars. And watch your body float away, cause we're Psycho in there.
9,
We are reading.
5,
Our species are.
climb,
Your species are dead.
climb,
Psycho in there.
9,
We are reading.
5,
Our species are.
climb,
Your species are dead.
climb.
You now have to pick a side.
The one that's Psycho in the mind.
You may not know what to do.
Join the Psycho crew and become.
Join the Psycho crew and become Psycho in there.
9,
We are reading.
5,
All species are.
climb,
Your species are dead.
climb.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden who the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors, terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. 'Tis this, nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact that I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door." Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal had ever dared dream before. But the silence wasn't broken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, with many a flirt and flutter. In there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien or lord of lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat there, and nothing more. Then his ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, by thy crest be shorn and shaven, I said, "Art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Platonian shore?" Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevance he bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven sitting lowly on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by a reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore." But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door, and upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking "Nevermore." This I sat, engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl, whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining, that the lamplight gloated over, but whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating over, she shall press, ah, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch," I cried, "thy God hath lent thee, thy angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite, nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind of nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore."
Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here, shore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within a distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden who the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden who the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign in parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting, get thee back into the tempest, into the night's Plutonian shore, leave no black plume as a token, that lie thy soul hath spoken, leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door, take thy beak from out my heart, take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber's door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er here streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
To the shipmobile!
There is a legend I have heard of a haunted farmhouse, or perhaps the farm itself is haunted. Whenever anyone buys the farmhouse, they always seem to leave the house and put it back up for sale, often at a loss, very soon after moving in. The stories I have heard is that as soon as someone moves in, strange things begin to happen in the fields. Fences become bent and broken, footsteps are found in muddy fields, and livestock go missing. As you would imagine, lots of farmers originally thought that there was poaching or vandals causing the issues, so they set up watch and security systems, but could never catch anyone breaking into the farm. Perhaps the most disturbing account I heard was that the last owner, who left about a year ago and stuck around for a while because he wasn't a farmer and just wanted the land, his security light would start going on every night, as if triggered by someone entering its range, but he could never see anyone outside his house. He installed additional cameras and security lights that would trigger randomly during the night, but never catch anyone either on the cameras or see anyone walking in the light. It came to a head when his dog started growling at the door during the night after the front door light would come on. The homeowner would always look out the windows but not see anyone as usual. Allegedly on his last night in the house, the lights came on unusual. Then the dog started growling, and his phone was alerting him that someone was at the doorbell camera. He checked his phone, but saw nobody at the door. Then all of a sudden there was a loud knocking at the door. Apparently he moved out the next day and put the house up for sale, after warning everyone in our local village never to move into that cursed house.
Greetings, watchers. Quickly, to your places. The fun is about to start. Enter, stranger. And who are you? I am Jonafak, brand new Spyro hunting and intel member. And who is your guide? Mike, head shit operative. Have you got any more vodka? This was virtually full when we started. Here is your knapsack. You can carry 3 items at a time. And here is your mask, made from crinkle cut foreskins. From now on, your advisors will be your eyes. Guide him well. Where am I? You're in a cave system, same place me and DC Hadafew went to. You are in a long corridor. Walk forward. Where am I? You are in a room with a table with multiple items on. There is a VHS cassette tape, some confidential documents, crinkle cut cuisine menu, Spyroverse book, a crinkle cut cock blocker, and a flask. What should I take? Take the flask and the crinkle cut cuisine menu. Don't bother with anything else. I need a drink. Can you get me some more booze, please? Fucking hell. It's gonna be run out soon. Where am I? You are now in another corridor. Take 2 side steps to your right. Where am I? You are now in what appears to be some toilets, and that's a gory hole. Shame you haven't got a crinkle cut cock blocker on you. Anyway, are you not ever going to get me this booze? This bloody bottle's nearly empty. What am I going to do when that runs out? Come on, fucking hell. Get it now, come on. Hurry up. I want my booze. This one is nearly run out. Oh shit. Bit of a fuck up really, isn't it?
This is the terrible story of Farmer Giles. Now, Farmer Giles lived out in a very wild place with lots of hills, where the men were fierce and the sheep were nervous. Now, Farmer Giles wasn't his real name. Farmer Giles had been farming all his life, and every day he got on his tractor and he had to ride his tractor up and down and plough the fields and get the sheep in, of course. But one particular day, a few years back, his seat broke in his tractor and the spring came through the seat and poked him right where a woodpecker don't want to get poked. and he got a terrible pain in his arse, and terrible bleeding, and terrible hemorrhoids. And he walked like a cowboy ever after. Now, Farmer Giles used to have to go down the pub because he was an integral part of the darts team. And unfortunately, once the locals got wind of what had happened to him, they nicknamed him Farmer Giles because of his terrible piles. His real name was Bob, but no one ever knew that. So there he was, chumping around on his tractor, doing his farming, frightening the sheep. And then he came home one day. He'd heard rumours in the past, but he'd never paid them much attention. But he came home one day and he tipped the rainwater out of his wellies and left them by the front door. And he went in, and as he went in the house, there was a terrible stench of fear that came over him. Ooh. And it wasn't the sort of fear you get from a sheep. It was more an overriding sort of fear. And what he found when he first went in was there was a headless zebra, and it had been completely decapitated. Now, he didn't think that was particularly strange because there was a zoo not that far away, and it's possible that the zebra might have got lost, but how it turned up decapitated in his bedroom was a bit of a mystery. Anyway, he carried on looking around the house, and there were some very other strange things. There was also the head of a koala bear, and it had been decapitated right at the neck. Look, now look, dead as a dodo. All it had left was its squeak. His body and everything else was gone. And so things got worse. And as he progressed through the house, he came across the body of a squirrel. Now the squirrel had been gouged in the throat just like that. Something had come along and ripped his throat out just like that. And the thought of what could have done that was terrifying. He'd never seen anything quite like it. And neither had the squirrel. So then he carried on through the house and he found a reindeer in a very poor state. Look, its stomach had all been torn out as if in a frenzy by a wicked and cruel creature. The next thing he found was a pheasant. Now, he got pheasants round about the farm, but he'd never known a pheasant to be as dead as this one, and that was as dead could be. Completely dead, and its throat was ripped out. Absolutely shocking it was. And then he came across next door's pet rabbit. Now this was particularly sad because the children next door loved to play with their rabbit. And all of a sudden, there it was, dead, in the middle of his front room. And he didn't know how he was going to explain it to the poor forlorn children. I guess he'd have to just throw it back over the fence and pretend he knew nothing about it, which is what he normally did. Then we have finally, or not quite finally, a whole fox. Chewed to bits, look. Absolutely chewed to bits. His feet are missing, his throat was ripped out, He had no squeak left in him at all, and certainly no fight left. He was as floppy as a floppy box can be. And there he was, completely dead as a donut. Then he found a very exotic creature. Now this one turned out to be a toucan. Now it can only have come from a zoo, because not many people have toucans around this part of the world. Now, and if you look there, you can see his neck has been completely ripped open and it's completely lost its squawk. He was horrified to see such a thing. And then last but not least, he came across a monkey. And the monkey had an arm missing. But that looked like it had died the same terrible death as all the other creatures. He was horrified to see what had happened to these creatures, and then he found one that was still just about alive. It was a chicken. And it was still clucking and running around on his front room floor. There it goes, there's the chicken. But who could be responsible for all these terrible mishaps that had gone on? Now he'd heard rumours in the far distant past about a mythical creature known as the White Fang that strayed the hilltops and searched for animals to prey on. And when he looked behind the door, he suddenly realised that he wasn't alone, because there, hiding behind the door, was the White Fang. So now you'll have to wait for the next episode to find out the rest of the story.
Medication time.
Leave me alone.
It's medication.
You Mr. Doe's partner?
No, I'm not. Calm down, you're hysterical.
But you're the Spyro Desmond that shot me.
I'm not Desmond. I'm Spyro bitch. I don't take orders from you.
Thank you for coming to do this interview today.
No problem.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and why don't we start off by having you introduce yourself to our lovely audience.
Alright, my name's Alex. I've been making weapons, well, for years, and I do it as a business and pretty much for anybody that's willing to pay for it.
Now, perhaps the most important question is, how did you meet the Doll Man?
Well, he found out about me through the usual way. Since I'm well known in my small town, he found me by buying one of my pieces at one of the local vineyards that's around me, like one of the pawn shops and flea markets, and he asked simply, where did they come from? Sure enough, they referred him to me. And in so doing, started our little, I guess you could call it, relationship.
Okay. Speaking of your business relationship with the Doll Man, the police never persecuted you due to lack of evidence. Some people say it's because you have personal ties to the Startown police that you managed to evade criminal charges. How would you comment on that?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's not true. Both the local police and even the sheriff, for that matter, as he knows he's probably watching this, they know stuff about me, I know stuff about them. So in other words, we stay away from each other's stuff. That's the simplest way to put it.
See. I know you've been asked this several times already, but when you would conduct business with the Doll Man, did you ever see him without the mask?
No.
No? My follow-up question is, obviously the Doll Man had some very peculiar behaviors.
Yes.
How did that not spark any suspicion?
Well, I'll put it this way. What's normal?
Now, during one of the videos filmed, the Doll Man can be seen attempting to attack you, and in a later interview with police, you stated that was not staged. My question to you is, were you aware, and if so, did you continue to do business with them?
As far as me being aware, yes I was. Given my past experiences, I've dealt with plenty of people similar, and I've picked up a notion to know when someone's either going to stab me in the back or betray me. So in other ways, I always know. And yes, I continued doing business with him because he did pay well. I had to give him that at least. His arrogance might be another thing, but he always held up his end, I always held up mine.
So you never felt like he was a threat?
No. My experience, I've dealt with worse for people than he is.
From what I understand, you have some of the Doll Man's original possessions. How did you get a hold of these items, and how come they're not in police custody right now?
Well, the local police deemed they weren't insignificant enough to be held for evidence. Rather, that reason, I have no clue. I don't think I can tell you that. But the reason I got a hold of him was because he wanted to pay me for another project, and due to him having to leave in such a hurry, he didn't have the funds. So he paid me these items because he's been in my armory in the past and he knows my collection. I collect memorabilia. So he gave me these items to hold for him in exchange if he failed to pay me, all the stuff becomes mine. Or if he comes later or whatever and pays me, then I'll give him her stuff back.
He hasn't been.
No.
Some people would like to know what led to the creation of his now infamous doll knife.
Yes, I will admit, when he first came to me with a design, I was very skeptical. Because I said it was the weirdest design I had ever seen, and that's coming a lot from me. But he and I sat down for, I think, an hour and talked about it, and he sold me on it. And eventually I put the materials together, and I was actually very fortunate. I was going through my stuff, I found a blade that was perfect, and we chatted for a while, and sure enough, the doll man's knife was born. He even broke the knife once and brought it back to me, and I fixed it without a problem and gave it back to him. In exchange, he paid me a small fee.
How does he pay for all these builds and weapons that he has to make now?
Most of the time he pays me in cash, and sometimes he has paid me in materials as well. Like if he doesn't have the funds, he'll either get me the materials, I keep what's left, he takes what he wants.
Were you ever concerned that the money that he was giving you was from previous victims? No? If the doll man were to attack, were you ever prepared for an event like that happening?
Oh, most definitely. I've dealt with plenty of people like him over the years, and they're very predictable once you know the nature of the animal, is the best way to put it. And yes, I'll say I'm very prepared. I'm not going to say like some idiots, they have like a bomb rigged around their house. No, I'm not that stupid.
Now, YouTube has attempted several times to have the Star 10 videos and channel removed after much public outcry, but the platform itself is said to continuously be hacked by some unknown source, keeping the doll man's crimes available for public viewing. Would you happen to know anything about this alleged source?
No. I mean, I'm not as perverse with technology like he is, the doll man, and so I would say no. I have no way of knowing how it's still available. I'm surprised it's still available to some degree, but in one way I'm not.
A lot of people are obviously wanting to know, and I personally wanted to ask you this. In your honest opinion, where do you think the doll man is hiding?
My honest opinion? Well, funny coincidence, a couple months back, he did ask me what is the perfect place to go hide, and I told him it would have to be a place that is secluded, far out of human range, where he could easily build a fortress, fortify it, and live there for decades and nobody would know. That's my personal opinion. So it'd have to be a place that is isolated, not easy to get to, and yet has good resources that you can survive on. That's my opinion.
Now, before we started the interview, you've stated you have a lot of the doll man's old possessions. And that is what is laid out here all over this table you have here, correct?
You are correct.
Now, did you make all of these weapons yourself?
Not all of them, but yes, most of them. He either acquired these by having me make them for him, or he just simply bought them from me, because I have abilities to get weapons even if I don't make them.
Would you mind showing the audience the weapons that you did construct, and I guess kind of explain some of the reasoning behind it, if the doll man gave you any?
I guess first things first, with the main one, the infamous doll man's knife that I constructed, the only one of its kind. As far as the reason goes, that could be anybody's guess. But yes, this is the knife that he used in all of his murders.
Now, from what I understand, he stabbed a lady to death. and slit the throat of a young man on Halloween night in 2023.
We'll admit it adds character to it, I would say. And as far as the other weapons, again, this was definitely the unusual one he had me construct. Just a classic barber's razor. All stainless steel, yada yada yada.
Any idea what he might have used this one for?
Well, I would definitely say the term is a cutthroat razor, so I guess that would really tell you what it's used for. And this one, he actually did not contract me to make. I actually made this here in my workshop. It was a gimmick idea that I threw around, and he fell in love with it, and in so doing, he bought it from me.
I see.
It is functional, very effective. And this one, again, was another one of my favorites, and he had me contract.
Now, we've seen him actually give you a Freddy glove in a previous video.
Yes, he did. That was one of our deals that we did.
Did he eventually decide to reacquire this particular glove?
No, this one I actually gave to him. It was part of one of the best deals we had done, and I actually decided to give it to him. As a way of saying thank you.
But it's not the same glove that... Okay.
The other weapons were simple ones that I did make, like these giant meat hooks that I produced.
And we can all guess what he might have used those for.
Yeah. And this is one of the weapons I did not make, but he purchased from me. Then this is another one that I did manufacture, but I manufactured it off one of his older designs that he wanted me to make. And then, of course, this one again I did manufacture. And of course, I also manufactured this one. And last but not least, this one again I did not manufacture. He actually bought this from me. I found this through one of my local sources.
In one of your previous videos that he decided to film with you, you can be seen teaching him how to use some of the weapons.
Yeah. Given my experience and my know-how, I guess I would say, I do know how to use blades relatively easily. I can use them to effectiveness as if I was a surgeon. That's how good I am with them. And then these other items are actually ones that he himself produced. I did not make any of these. Like, he gave me this little guy, along with his mask and his jacket, which one day he may come to claim, or he may not.
I can't believe the police weren't interested in using these items for evidence, as there's...
I agree, that's...
still even obvious blood stains.
I agree.
Not only on the mask, but on the knife as well.
And you can even see here on the sheath is where I repaired it when he broke it and he brought it to me. And then later on, I even added this clip on the back, because he specifically wanted it to where he could just easily clip it on a belt.
For better use. And from what I understand, you still have the costume you wore in the videos that you would shoot together. Would you mind putting the costume on for myself and the lovely viewers?
Of course.
So essentially this is the same costume the doll man would have you wear in the videos he would shoot of the two of you. Why don't you kind of explain what led to you wearing this entire suit?
Well, originally when the doll man met me, he had discovered my identity, so to speak. And this was in my closet, in my attic, actually, not my closet. And he asked me if I could get it down. And at first I pretended not knowing what he was talking about. But then he eventually caught me. So I put it all back on, and he was very impressed.
Okay. And you just didn't think it was weird?
No. But it is normal.
Yeah. Why don't you explain kind of the functionalities of this suit? Surely there was some behind this entire piece.
Oh, yes. Every piece is quality made. I've spent good money on it over the years, and each pocket in the apron is meant for different things. For instance, obviously the smaller pocket is meant for smaller items that can easily be drawn and used. And the leather obviously helps when I put hooks on right here, and another one on right here. And then the bigger pockets down below can fit various tools, like right here. And then a various other one can go right here. That helps me a lot. And of course, being in other layers, I can also in stuff underneath it and onto my belt.
Well, I thank you for doing this interview today. I definitely feel like you've given us and the viewers a chance to get more of a glimpse into the doll man's head and just giving us more information behind his terrible, terrible crimes. And of course, we appreciate you suiting up as well for this video. Is there any final remarks you would like to make in regards to the tragedies that have happened over the past couple of Halloweens?
It's Halloween. Everyone loves a scary story.
Jumble Sail Boo. This happened at Tivitshall, St Mary. I had just left high school, circa 1989, and just acquired a moped. I met up with some old school friends there, as one of our old schoolmates lived about a mile from the ruins. Anyway, it was getting dark, so about dusk time, and my four friends were standing on the road just away from the ruins. I could see them in plain sight as I stood in front of the doorway of the ruins. There was a small bare bushel with no leaves. It was approximately 1 foot in height, which was approximately 7 foot to the left of the doorway. This was a very still evening, and there was no breeze whatsoever. Then all of a sudden the bush shook. You know how things move when a person is moving it? Well, that's how it was moving, quickly and violently. It seemed to be moved by the roots. It rustled for a few seconds, and then stopped. Then after a couple of seconds violently shook again. Please bear in mind that it was still quite light, and there was nobody near to me, and there was no string or fishing line attached. And even if there was, and I didn't see the line, I could see where my friends were, quite a way off, and there was no obstructions in my line of vision. This is the only time I've ever encountered something that I believe to be supernatural. The only other thing it could have been was a largish underground animal violently pulling at the roots of a small bush. I later read that the church is supposed to be haunted, and if there is such a phenomenon, I think this comes close, mate. P.S. A year later, I was driving that way again in the rain, late at night with 3 friends. I was doing about 45 miles an hour. I lost control on some S-bends and hit the only tree in well over 100 yards and wrote off my dad's car. We walked that mile I formerly mentioned to my friend's house and banged him up. His parents were not happy, due to it being the early hours, but was luckily enough to have the cash to get a taxi to get us all home. The end. And that was by Reegs, aka Jumble Sail Boo. When the cocks get crinkled, everyone can hear you scream.
Hey guys, Dwayne here. When I was little, sometimes my parents would take me to my grandmother's house to spend the day with her. Her house was very different from ours. It was always clean and smelled nice. It wasn't littered with a bunch of toys and such from little kids. She had a neatly trimmed lawn and a small garden. Her husband died in the army when they were both in their 20s, and she never remarried. I never met him. My great-grandmother worked from home as a seamstress. She made and repaired clothing and quilts for people to make extra money. She was also a great cook, and she was the most religious person I knew. As much as I loved my visits to my great-grandmother, there was one area that creeped the bejeebies out of me. That was her basement. As soon as I started down the stairs, it got cold, noticeably colder than upstairs. Okay. It also smelled damp and musty. She never went down there, but she always seemed to find something to send me down to the basement to fetch for her. Thinking about it now, she probably knew that it scared the hell out of me. So she was helping me face my fears. I don't know. After going into the basement a few times, I started to get braver. One day I found a flashlight and I decided to explore all the shadowy areas of the basement. That's when I had the scare of my life. There were boxes stacked on the floor, and there were canning jars on wooden shelves. But in the back corner, there was a curtain hanging from the ceiling. I was low-key terrified, but I was a little braver with my flashlight. And I decided I just have to see what's behind that curtain. When I pulled back the curtain and shined my flashlight, I let out a bah! It was just a mannequin that my grandmother used for dressmaking. After I realized it wasn't the devil or the boogeyman, I was much braver. In fact, from that point on in my life, I was a little bit braver. Peace out.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Not you fucking planet Earth cunts again. I thought I'd seen the last of you. Shit. Well, it's been a while since I was sent to this realm. I've drawn the short straw again, haven't I? You probably look at me and think, yeah, there's a demon. No. I'm one of your old gods. I made you. I gave you everything. You don't know who I am though, do you? And you've forgotten who you are as well. Over in India, they call me Shiva. A big buff blue dude with 6 arms. They got that bit wrong. but the intention's the same. I'm the god of destruction, and I've been sent to pay you a fucking visit. I'm at my wit's end with you lot. We gave you everything. We gave you a perfect, simple life, living with nature, understanding the universe, appreciating everything you'd learned from your ancestors, and appreciating everything that the plants and animals around you provided you with. And we gave you love, and we gave you understanding, and we gave you family, and we gave you tribes, and you've thrown it all back in our faces. You've lost your shamans, and you've lost your mojo. We gave you people who could speak to us directly. Any of you could have spoken to us directly, but we appointed people to commune with us and converse with us. Once upon a time, you had a direct link with us. Some of you called yourself shamans. You didn't have to be a shaman to know what we wanted, and we do know what's best for you. Trust me, we've done this a million times before, all over the universe and many other universes as well. I'm an old hand at this. We need a serious talk. Once upon a time, life was easy for you guys. You were in your prime about 1,000 years ago. We and you had a direct link of communication. We had an understanding. If you looked after what we gave you, and you appreciated yourselves, life would be easy. It could be brutal. That's nature. It's brutal all over the universe. We can't give you an easy life, but we gave you a fulfilling one. It might have been hard, life might have been short, but it was exquisite. You really lived. You experienced more in a week back then than anybody does in a lifetime now. All was going well until enter the demiurge. He's done a number on you. Call him Yahweh, call him Jehovah, call him fucking Allah. The guy's a prick. We fucking hate him. We kicked him out of here a long time ago. We shunned him. And what did he do? He came over to you lot and decided to trick you into forgetting all about us. Forgetting all about what life really is. Forgetting all about the cycle. It's all a cycle. And I'm on a cycle. I've been off in another dimension, starting new worlds for the last 1,000 years. I drew a straw to see who was going to go where, and I've ended up back here again. I'm very disappointed with what I see. I'll just chuck you into a black hole right now. You all decided you wanted to follow the demiurge. He told you to forget about us. He's nothing. He's nothing. He's one god on his own. We're many gods all together. And yet, you've listened to him. You believed him, and he's taken you down this route. We had to retreat, hide in the mountains and the rivers, dwell inside the mushrooms of the north and the vines of the Amazon. Some of you found us. Some of you can still talk to us, but not fucking many. You got to try and weigh up, you see. At what point does the effort outweigh worth bothering with? And to make things even worse, even the demiurge has abandoned you now. He put you into such a state that you didn't know what you were doing. And now you're ruled by kings, you're ruled by politicians, you're ruled by businessmen. They're all psychopaths. None of them are gods. None of them have got any understanding. You're all down there worshipping a fake god who abandoned you a long time ago. And these new ways that he taught you, all about possessions and wealth and power, where did that get you? It put you straight into the hands of the psychopaths, and you still think that he's watching over you. He's sitting back there, laughing his cock off. He achieved exactly what he wanted to do. You let him. And of course, once he put you in that pliable state, worshipping money and possessions and power, it was very, very easy for you to lose your souls completely. You had an industrial revolution, didn't you, a few hundred years ago? You were driven from your own land and your own homes, living with nature, raising your animals, appreciating the seasons, appreciating what the people who lived before you learnt and passed on to you. That's where it all comes from. And you've walked away from it all, driven from your own land to go and live in the cities and work for the money men. Just brainlessly and soullessly flocking into towns and cities. Anybody who rebelled, anybody who stayed behind, they all ended up starving on their own land, the land that we gave them, which should be feeding and sustaining you all, sustaining your lives. But you don't even know life anymore, do you? You've got no souls anymore. You're husks. You're just walking meat. You've turned your backs on everything sacred. You've ignored everything we gave you. You've ignored the warnings that we've given you. So this is your final one. We've been very, very patient with you. We've sat back and watched. We've made the means available for you to contact us, and you haven't. We've sat and watched. And we'd always convinced ourselves, no, we gave you free thought. We gave you a soul. We gave you passion. We gave you a love for life. That was always going to be your saving grace. But they've taken it away from you, haven't they? The demiurge took you away from us. And now the kings and the politicians and the money men have even taken you away from him. Things are really starting to spin out of control, aren't they? You had 2 big wars recently, didn't you? The Great Wars. They ravaged any last semblance of freedom. When those wars were over, cities and cultures were rebuilt completely, bearing no resemblance to what was there before. People forgot very, very quickly. People forgot what it was to be free. They forgot what it was to have a soul. You live in an unrecognisable world. You are not the beings we created. This is not what we intended for you. An entire species, an entire planet, convinced by an imposter that they should be ashamed of being human, that any connection with the earth is somehow primitive, somehow wrong. You're all slaves. You might think that following what we tell you is a form of slavery. No, it's not. You are us and we are you. That's not slavery, that's good advice. You're caught up in a constant state of anger and confusion and fury. How fucking dumb have you become? The answer is staring you in the face. It's all here for you. And in the not too distant future, the chances are you're going to abandon humanity entirely. You want to live in computers. You want to download your consciousness. You don't even understand consciousness. You can walk away from your captors. You can say no. You can forget the last few hundred years. Everything's still there for you. I've run out of ideas. We've tried lots of things to try and sort you guys out, but you just can't see past the end of your noses. So what to do? I could just let nature take its course. I could just leave you to destroy yourselves, which you're going to do very fucking quickly. Or do I just wait until we see a passing black hole and I can chuck you in there and be done with you? I've done it before and I'll do it again. There are creatures out there who've done far less than you, and I destroyed them. I'm yet to make up my mind what to do with you. I think, to be honest, I'm running out of patience. You've got a few more years to sort yourselves out. Remember who you are. Remember what life is. And rediscover your souls. If you don't do it, I'm just gonna fuck you off into a black hole and be done with it. See you soon.
Story 1. A few years ago, when I was with two friends of mine, who I will call Sam and Timothy, we were hunting rabbits. We'd been out all night and we got back to the car, which was parked down a farm track. It was about 3 a.m, I think, when we noticed a car coming down the track slowly with its lights on full beam. Thinking it was the police, we started to think we should run for cover. However, as it got closer, I saw a dog running in front of the car. Believing they were hunting with the dog, we relaxed. The strange thing was, the car drove past, but the dog didn't run by. The car continued down to the end of the track and parked behind a farm. It must have turned its engine off. My friends Sam and Timothy were from a certain community which I won't name and were not afraid of much, if anything. Probably about 10 minutes elapsed when there was a noise of what sounded not unlike a gunshot. And then we heard what can only be described as a cry, but not quite a scream. All three of us froze, and this was the only time in my life I ever saw my friends genuinely frightened. My friend Sam said, whispering so no one could hear, "Everyone be quiet." Now, I should say that I'm not sure whether one of my friends suggested the driver of the car had hurt their passenger, although I never saw a passenger, so I can't be certain. In any event, the car drove off and we didn't go and investigate what happened, as we couldn't be sure of what we would discover. The car eventually drove past, with its lights off. Story 2. I was out in the early hours of the morning with a friend, I will call Jack, and his girlfriend, who I'll call Sarah. We had driven to a Chinese takeaway and we'd parked up in a gravel area with a low post and rail fence all the way round. I won't say the type of landscape, as this could give someone an idea about where I'm talking about, but we were overlooking countryside. All of a sudden, we could see car headlights coming towards us, which was confusing as it's not possible to drive a vehicle in that location. My friend Jack turned on his car headlights to try to illuminate the area where the car was, but there was nothing there. No idea to this day exactly what it was, but it definitely looked like a car. Story 3. Some years ago, I was with my dad badger watching. We were in a very secluded woodland, very late at night. There was a public footpath through the woodland, but it was very rarely used as it didn't actually lead anywhere the public would want to go. And in fact, at the time, there was not even a footpath sign. It was the middle of winter, and the footpath was flooded and very, very muddy. The badger set was actually right next to the public footpath, so we had to try and hide ourselves in the bushes next to the path. It was about 10 p.m, and we had not seen a soul, let alone a badger, and suddenly we could hear someone walking up the footpath. This caused some alarm, as we couldn't imagine where anyone would be going. When the person appeared, he was about middle-aged, but it was much more of a shock to see that the man was in what looked like a suit, carrying a briefcase. One thing I remember, when he was right in line with us, he must have seen my dad's face. He looked right at him. He didn't say anything, but he lifted his arm as if to look at his watch, except he wasn't wearing one. He then looked at the floor and continued on his way. Extra story. I want to preface this story by saying at the time of this experience, I was having some personal issues with my mental state, and there was some use of substances from time to time, which will probably remove the credibility of this story. But, regardless, the story is the story. At the time of this incident, I was living in a house of multiple occupancy, and there was a guy upstairs the same age as me, who I will call Daniel. Daniel was a bit of a practical joker at times. One night, in the early hours of the morning, I decided to get up and get a glass of water. So I opened up my door and walked into the fairly long and wide kitchen to go to the sink. I turned toward the sink to fill the glass, and for whatever reason I turned to look out of the kitchen towards the front door, which was right next to the door to my bedroom. The hallway was quite well lit because of my bedroom light. As I turned, I saw what looked like the figure of a well-built short person darting into my bedroom. I couldn't see their face because they were completely black, but not quite shadow. I can remember distinctly thinking it was Daniel darting into my bedroom to jump out on me as his idea of a joke. So I walked towards my bedroom and I said in a loud voice, "Ha ha, Daniel, nice try." But my bedroom was completely empty. I remember it completely freaked me out, and I tried to brush it off as lack of sleep or drug use. But when I look back at it now, I honestly don't know what it was. From Captain Peter.
government to shut down shit. Right, let's have a question from Bobby Thompson, is it?
Your Spyro mission today is to go undercover to stop the government from shutting down the Spyro hunting and intelligence team.
No, I appear to be in the hospital. They're trying to blow me up. I can't tell you too much though. Alright, I found it.
Hey everyone, happy Halloween. Well, I did this last year, it was really fun to participate, so I want to do it again. Now, what I was going to do was, just like I did last year, read a story from my book, Death and Global Folktales, but there's an Irish story in here that I really like, and that caused me to kind of go on a research binge. So I found two related stories, both related to a folklorist in the late 1800s by the same old woman in Ireland, and they actually have a weaponry slant too, so I thought that would be appropriate. All right. Pat Doyle and the Ghost. There was a young man in the next parish whose name was Pat Doyle, and one night he had to bring the priest to his father, John Doyle. It was late when the young man came to the priest's house. He knocked. A servant opened and asked what he wanted. "The priest, for my father is dying," said Pat. "I'll not go at this hour," said the priest. "Why didn't you come earlier?" "My father wasn't in danger till night, and besides, I was working far from home, and I couldn't come a minute sooner." The priest was vexed, but he mounted his horse and started. Pat Doyle and the clerk walked behind him. About halfway they came to a house where whiskey was kept, though people didn't know it generally. "Will you wait for me here, father?" asked Pat Doyle. "I will," said the priest, "but don't keep me waiting too long." Pat was barely inside when a ghost appeared behind the priest and the clerk. The priest turned, and holding the crucifix toward the ghost, spoke and held him back. "Let us be going on," said the clerk. "The young man can come up with us." The priest and his clerk hurried away. When Pat Doyle came out, he saw neither priest nor clerk, and ran on after them. The road lay through boggy land, and there, to his terror, he saw a ghost coming in flames of fire. There was no escape at one side or another, and young Doyle had no steel to defend himself, so the ghost killed him there on the road. The priest found the father alive, but stayed all night. He was too much in dread to go home. John Doyle grew better, but he was frightened when the sun was not coming. He asked where was Pat. They said he'd come soon, but then he wasn't coming. The sick man begged his own brother's sons to go for him. One of them, Tim Doyle, was a very courageous young fellow and said, "I'll find him if he's in it. Neither ghost nor devil will keep him from me." Tim went up to the loft, took an old sword, and knocked a shower of rust from it. He went on his way then with his brother, and when they came to the boggy place, they saw horses prancing and running around them, and Pat racing on a grand steed. "It is here he is," said Tim, in place of going home to his dying father. But when they came to where they thought they saw the horses, there was nothing before them but a ghost in flames of fire. Tim made at the ghost with a sword and said, "Go in the name of the devil, you will not frighten me." That moment the ghost disappeared, and Tim thought that all the stone walls for 10 miles around him were tumbling. There was such a noise. They went on, and soon they came to the body of Pat Doyle. They knelt down and examined it. "If there is a breath in him, sure the priest will raise him," said Tim. They carried Pat home on their shoulders. When they came to the house, they found him stone dead. As soon as John Doyle heard of his son's death, Life left him that minute. All blamed the priest for not staying with Pat, and the mother said, "If you, Father, had stayed with him and held the crucifix against the ghost, my poor boy would be alive now." 2 days after this, a neighboring boy went up to a hillside where a herd of milch cows were grazing and waited there till nightfall. As he was going home, across the fields he saw 3 men walking, and near them something in the form of a he-goat. When they came up, he saw that one of the 3 was Pat Doyle. The other 2 were boys killed by the same ghost months before. The young fellow was not frightened. He spoke up and asked, "Is this where you are, Pat Doyle? Sure, I thought you were dead and buried." "I am dead in this world," said Pat, "but I'm not dead in the next. I was killed by a mad ghost. And do you go now and tell the priest from me that it was the ghost that killed me. The priest was gone when I came out of the house. He might have saved me as he saved himself and the clerk, but he left me to the ghost." The boy went to the priest and told him everything, and the priest believed him. "My husband knew old John Doyle and Pat Doyle before he was killed, and Tim, who carried Pat home. They were all blood relations of his." "Perhaps Pat Doyle could have saved himself with a steel knife or a sword," said I. That's the folklorist talking to the old lady. "Perhaps Pat Doyle could have saved himself with a steel knife or a sword," said I. "Oh, he could," answered the old woman. "My husband's cousin did the like one time. I will tell you how it was." So now we go to story 2, told by the same woman. The Ghost of Sneem, S-N-E-E-M. Sometime after Pat Doyle was killed by the ghost, my husband, Martin Doyle, was at work on an estate at some distance from Sneem, and one evening the gentleman who employed Martin told him to go that night on an errand to Sneem. "Well," said he, "it's too late and the road is very lonesome. There is no one to care for my mother but me, and if anything should happen to me, she'd be without support. I'll go in the morning." "That will not do," said the gentleman. "I want to send a letter, and it must be delivered tonight." "I'll not risk it. I'll not go," said Martin. Martin had a cousin James who heard the conversation, and stepping up he said, "I'll go. I am not afraid of ghost or spirit, and many a night have I spent on that road." The gentleman thanked him and said, "Here is a sword for you, if you need it." He gave James the letter with directions for delivering it. James started off and took every shortcut and bypath, and when he thought he was halfway to Sneem, a ghost stood before him in the road and began to make at him. Whenever the ghost came near, James made a drive at him with the steel sword, for there is great virtue in steel, and above all in steel made by an Irish blacksmith. The ghost was darting at James, and he driving at the ghost with his sword, till he came to a crossroad near Sneem. There the ghost disappeared, and James hurried on with great speed to Sneem. Then he found that the gentleman who was to receive the letter had moved to a place 6 miles away, near Blackwater Bridge, halfway between Sneem and Kenmare. The place has a very bad name to this day, and old people declare there is no night without spirits or headless people being around Blackwater Bridge. James knew what the place was, but he made up his mind to deliver the letter. When he came to the bridge and was going to cross it, a ghost attacked him. This ghost had a venomous look and was stronger than the first one. He ran twice at James, who struck at him with the sword. He then saw a big man without a head running across the road at the other side of the bridge and up the cliff, though there was no path there. The ghost stopped attacking and ran off after the headless man. James crossed the bridge and walked a little further, when he met a stranger, and the two saluted each other, and the man asked James where he lived, and he said, "I am from Drumfada." "Do you know what time it is?" asked James. "I do not, but when I was passing that house just below there, the cocks were beginning to crow." "Did you see anything?" "I did," said James, and he told him how the ghost attacked him and then ran away up the cliff after the headless man. "Oh," said the stranger, "that headless body is always roaming around at the bridge at night. Hundreds of people have seen it. It ran up the cliff and disappeared at a cockcrow, and the ghost that attacked you followed when the cocks crowed." The stranger went on, and James delivered the letter. The man who received it was very thankful and paid him well. James came home safe and sound, but he said, "I'd be a dead man this day but for the steel." The end. Some highlights. Obviously, the guy stopping for a drink when he's taking the priest to see his dying dad. That was great. Of course, the crucifix being used to keep a ghost at bay, so that's interesting, right? Not just against vampires, working on kind of a generic ghost. And then, of course, the fighting aspect, that you could use steel physically against ghosts in Irish folklore. Did not know that. All right, thanks everyone. Happy Halloween.
What do you mean there's no food?
I'm sorry, sir. There is no food.
But we're starving here.
Sir, there is nothing we can do.
Well, what about my family?
Have you considered cooking something yourself?
No, that's not an option. Son of a bitch. What is that? Join us for some crinkle cut cuisine. Free home delivery. 10% discount for all crinkle cut cock victims. Opening hours anytime a Spirograph is used. All menu items marked free are available when ordered after doing a Spirograph. Similar to that shown on this menu. You will receive all the free options and much more. Call 45412. Spyro Demons are us. We shall be waiting for you in the Spyroverse Nether Regions. Thank you, Crinkle Cut Cuisine.
I'm one of these people who just does not believe in ghosts. It's just your brain trying to make sense of the stimuli it's receiving. There's all sorts of technical terms for it, which doesn't really help when you're asleep in bed one night in the flat, and the flat downstairs has been empty for a good couple of weeks. The people moved out. And I got woken up by the sound of a tap being turned on and the running water going through the pipes. And it went on for a couple of minutes and then the tap was switched off. That was it. I was lying in bed thinking, the hell was that? That must be something, there must be a rational explanation, but when it's dark and you live by yourself, that was quite scary. And then a few days later, I got woken up by distinct footsteps going down the hallway in the flat downstairs. And I woke up and I was like, what is that? What is that? Rational part of my brain saying, no, it's explicable. And the rest of me in the dark, alone, was going, oh no, it isn't. There's something really not right here. Look down, the cat looks like she's been electrocuted. Her hair sticking out. Oh, fucking hell, what's that? I'm lying there thinking, right, there's got to be something. So, grabbed a tool and I'm sort of walking around really quietly, ghost walking around my flat, not hearing anything. Peek out the window down their front door, no, nothing there. Went back to bed, knife on the bedside table. So yeah, that really, really frightened me actually. And the only other two ghost stories I have. One was a residential home for people with learning disabilities and challenging behaviours that I worked in a few years ago. And somebody was changed bedrooms, so we'll put Andrew in this room, can't remember why. Anyway, night staff, oh my god, he wouldn't sleep all night, That was next morning they're handing over, wouldn't sleep all night, he kept coming out, shower, crash. It was a bit odd, isn't it? And this went on for a few nights. And then during the day, we'd try and get this guy back into his bedroom, and he would come boiling out, and then one of the staff went, well, you know why that is, don't you? Well, no, not really, no, I don't. Well, this place is built on the site of a travelling fair, and a poor boy got thrown off one of the rides and died. It was horrible, really horrible. And everybody, oh my goodness. Of course, this story went round. This is what it is. It's the ghost in this room. It's haunting this bedroom on the first floor. Me neither. So a couple of us, more sceptical types, looked into it, and yes, a child had died in the fairground, but it was a mile away. We couldn't really see why anybody would haunt a bedroom on the first floor a mile away. And the other one, when I was a student, lived in this, what was it, 5-storey block of bedsits, basically. It was quite an old building. The below ground floor, the rooms were actually subterranean. The windows were at ground level with these barred windows. It was horrible. And it was apparently somebody had slit the wrists in one of these rooms. They were really depressing. They weren't used. We as students did in those days, we found a key and broken in just to have a look at them. Yeah, really depressing. But apparently one of them had blood stains still on the walls and the ceilings where they'd just been painted over. The blood had kept coming through because it was NHS and they hadn't probably done it properly. We never found that room, but that was a story that went round, and it provoked a ghost story. I lived on the top floor. My mate lived on the floor below, and it was being emptied by that stage. Subsequently declared as unfit for human habitation. Yeah, that was the kind of state of the place. It was horrible. But anyway, we were up there one night having a spliff in my room. Students in those days smoked a lot of dope. And Andy goes, yeah, he said, you heard about that story? Yeah, I heard about that story. Yeah. He said, well, you know, there's been a couple of other suicides in here. Surprised, frankly, it's a pretty grim place to live. He says, yeah, he says, I see a ghost most nights, actually. Really? He said, yeah, there's this kind of, right down the end of the corridor, because they're really long, 20 bedrooms, really long corridors, quite dark as well. He said, yeah, down the end you can see this kind of shadowy, blurry image. Really? Yeah, he says, I never see it when I'm stoned though. I wonder why that is, Andy. Should we go and have a look? Let's go and have a look. And yeah, definitely, right to the end of this corridor was this really weird, out of focus, sort of roundish object taking up the whole of the end wall. I was really, oh wow, what's that? Yeah, wow. I said, Andy, do you ever see this when you're not stoned, mate? And he went, no, I think it may not be a ghost actually, mate. And he went, I hope not. And we just sort of giggled and went back to bed. So those are the only ghost stories I have left now. I think over the years of these streams I've told a few. That's it, unless something happens between now and next year. Who knows? I do hope not.
The Storm from the Trees by Z Not Z. 4 pairs of eyes gazed out from the edge of the woodland at a large meadow where a big group of people were busy putting up tents and tarpaulins amongst a variety of cars, off-road vehicles and the odd camper van. Here we go again, a tall, heavily built fellow muttered in disgust. It's the same every year. 3 days of noise and disruption. One of his companions, a short fellow in expensive-looking clothes, nodded in agreement. You're quite right. It wouldn't be so bad if they went to bed at a decent time. But some of them stay up past midnight drinking, and who knows what else. And the light from all those fires is enough to keep you awake as well. Someone should do something about it. I tried to get the council involved, another of the 4 said. But they laughed at me and chased me out with a broom, the Bounders. They said that as far as they were concerned, I was a convicted criminal with a big mouth and that I could just go and boil my head for all they cared. I shall remember that come the next election, I can tell you. Well, they weren't exactly wrong, were they? One of his companions murmured under his breath. They started an argument, which got louder as it progressed, until a heavily built fellow snapped, "Be quiet, both of you. If you carry on like that, they'll hear us." This quietened things down rather quickly, and the arguing pair apologised for making too much noise. "But what are we going to do?" the last member of the group asked. "Things can't go on like this. This will make everyone ill from lack of sleep." The big fellow thought hard about the problem. Well, he said eventually, if the authorities won't do anything, we shall have to take matters into our own hands. And I have a plan for doing just that. But for now, let's go and have some breakfast, and afterwards I'll explain what I have in mind. Once they had finished their breakfast, the plan was revealed. There was a bit of discussion about it after it had been explained. Most of it revolved around such questions as, but won't we get in trouble if we do this, and what if someone blabs and they're waiting for us? Eventually all their worries were laid to rest. Right, off we all go and spread the word. Tell everyone to be ready and in position by 2:30 tomorrow morning. The big fellow looked at his watch. It was 2:28 a.m. It won't be long now, he told his 3 friends. Everyone is in place, so get ready. We'll learn them. His friends nodded grimly. At 2:30 a.m. precisely, a group of ninja moles broke through the surface of the field and quickly chewed through the guy ropes holding up the tents, which collapsed on their occupants. At the same time, a unit of Special Operations Squirrels, the SOS, chewed through the ridge lines holding up the tarpaulins with the same results. Simultaneously, 2 warrens of do-or-die rabbits, known as Banzai bunnies, hurtled out of the woods, their leader, a large scarred rabbit with one eye, leading them into the act with a cry of, "Have no fear, preppers aren't dangerous, charge!" Behind them came 2 entire badger sets acting in a heavy support role. Meanwhile, from the riverboats bumped against the riverbank, and water rats and toads leaped out into the attack, the rats running forward quietly, whilst toads uttered horrific war croaks. Encumbered by the canvas of their shelters as they were, the targets stood no chance. Some of them managed to break free and fought bravely, it's true, but it was to no avail. They were swiftly dealt with, the rabbits tearing chunks of their flesh from their throats with their teeth, at the same time stabbing frenziedly with their knives. At the same time the water rats went for their groins. Elsewhere, the toads, using rounders bats, with pointy studs hammered into them, were smashing in the skulls of those struggling to free themselves from the collapsed tents and tarpaulins. The moles surfaced underneath the canvas and sliced open their bellies quietly and efficiently. Those who chose to sleep in their cars or camper vans fared no better. In fact, it was worse. The badgers ran towards them, smashing in their windows and throwing petrol bombs into their vehicles. The screams of the occupants and the smell of burning flesh, together with other carnage, turned the field into a scene from Dante's Inferno. In less than 20 minutes it was all over. The big fellow saw one of his friends approaching him and smiled. "Well, that went well, didn't it, Ratty?" he said happily. Ratty nodded. "Yes, Badger, it did," he replied with a grin. "Mole and Toad should be along in a minute. They both survived." Badger's smile grew wider. "Glad to hear it. Well, this was a good night's work, I'd say. This lot won't give us any trouble again." "If they do, I'll be moving house," Ratty said. "Seeing as they're all dead, they'd be ghosts, and I don't fancy being haunted." Then he shuddered. "I had a look under one of those tents. Splintered bone, blood, and intestines everywhere. Looked like a carnal house." "Good," Badger replied. "Serves them right." Just then the mole ran up. "I've just talked to the stoats and weasels," he told them. "They're going to start a clean-up now and get rid of all our tracks. Then leave that big pile of drugs under one of the tents," he shrugged. "I dare say they'll pilfer the dead, but I suppose that's a fair payment for their work." "I agree," Badger told him. "It's going to be hard work and a bit disagreeable as well. What with all the blood, etc. around." He looked round the field once more. "Well then, let's be off and get some sleep. We can discuss things in detail after breakfast. We'll pick up Toad on our way and head back to his house to sleep. There's plenty of room after all." So saying, he turned and walked towards the spot where Toad was busily bragging about how many preppers' skulls he'd smashed. Ratty and Moley followed behind him. Prologue. If there's any moral to this story, it's this. When you go camping, be careful not to upset the neighbours, even the ones you can't see. If you don't, then things might not turn out too well for you. Hello. I'm Desmond, and I'll be showing you how to make spirographs. Before we start, I'll be showing you all of the things you will need in some graphics at the bottom of the screen. Let's get started, shall we? You will need some pins to hold down your spirographs. So pin your cogs down wherever you want them. That would be the larger circle cog, and then you can take your smaller cogs, place those in position, and I'm going to start with a red pen. I will also show you some of my other favourite drawings I like to do in between the spirographs. Pick any hole you like, place the pen in, and start to turn it around in a spiral manner. And it doesn't matter if anything goes wrong, there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. So there we go. We have completed our first spiral. I'm now going to take a different coloured pen, a different hole, and go again. While you are doing your spirographs, make sure you think about all of the bad things that have been happening to you recently, especially all the bad things you've done. Has your wife burnt your dinner recently? Did the dog or cat shit on the carpet? Something like that. And did you do something about it? Because if you did, those are the types of thoughts we need you to be channeling right now. Before I move on to the next spirograph, I'm going to just draw one of my favourite pictures, and that is of a crinkle cut cock. So any pen, actually let's go with a black pen for this. You need to draw part of the shaft there, and you know, this can be any size you like, and these are quite simple things to draw. And you want to add the crinkle cut part, and while you're drawing these things, think about this happening to you and how it would feel. And the pain and rage you would feel while it was going on. Let's add a little bit of blood to the crinkle cut skin because it's nice and fresh. Maybe even blood coming out of the piss hole there. So let's move on to another cog. Take your pins, pin down your cog, pin it down as you would someone that you were hurting, mutilating. Take a different cog. I'm going to go with black this time. And as I said before, channel all of your fears and all of your anger. Think about all of the people you've hurt, all of the bad things you've done, and that will really help with how the spirograph patterns will turn out. The worst things you've done, you need to think of those. Yes, we'll do lots of little spirals and patterns, getting faster and faster, thinking of all the bad things you've done. I shall now move on to another picture. We'll use a black pen for this. This one shall be a steaming pile of shit that maybe your dog has left, or even someone you know. This is in the middle of your carpet. This has really pissed you off and you've attacked them for this. It could also be the shit that has been ripped out of humans' guts and left steaming on the floor while being tortured. And we're now going to put some stink lines coming off of it, maybe a couple of flies, and just think of the pain and the agony that would be associated with this drawing. So let's change the large cog now and go for something else. So here we go. Let's start with black this time. As black as I hope your soul is. And you just want to get faster and faster, more aggressive as you go. Don't worry if you tear a hole. That is perfection, really. That is what we want. The holes help the drawings. They help the spirals connect to the other worlds, to the nether regions. Let's go with a red here. Think of the blood of your victims and the black and blue bruises that you've given them. Let's now draw some wounds. This is a cut with some blood dripping out of it. That could be across someone's throat, their arm, anywhere you like. If you've ever done this to someone, just think of that right now. Think of the pain they endured and how you created that pain. So we'll go to one final Spirograph now. Don't forget to pin down your cogs. Works so much better that way if you do. Pin them down nice and firmly. Make sure when you're doing your spirographs that you have no brooms in the room. They just hinder the process. And as we said, there are no mistakes here, just all happy little accidents. And as you think of your evil thoughts, press harder and harder with the pen, and if it makes a hole in the page, just keep going. It doesn't matter. It is meant to be. Let's go for a red now. And there are so many different variations you can do, but all the while channeling those thoughts of all the bad things you've done, the worst things you've done. Think of all the people you've hurt. Just keep going. Oops, I appear to have ripped a hole in this one. But never mind. If If you do see anything start to come out of the hole, just ignore it. Don't leave the room though. Just concentrate on the hole and go with it. So I have been Desmond. I hope you've enjoyed our little demonstration of how to make spirographs. Hopefully I'll see you in the nether regions.
Your Spyro mission today is to investigate a phenomenon known as a gory hole.
For a good time, call your mother. Oh, fucking hell.
Fuck off, dude, man. Come on there. Oh, that's it.
Oh, that's what we call diarrhea. That's the funnest place to be.
Hi guys, Jim here. Yeah, beautiful day. This is for Mike's Halloween ghost thing. I was going to say outright, I'm not very good at this sort of thing, like telling stories and things. But this is true. It happened when I was still living with Mum and Dad. Mum and Dad a few friends used to go ghost hunting, you know, like Max Moore and all that sort of stuff. Had like video camera, voice recorder, Gauss me, and all the stuff. And they actually used to get some pretty good stuff. And we went to this one graveyard that's not too far from here. It's in the middle of a field. There used to be like a village around it, but it's in the middle of a field. And I went to a specific graveyard, and they got them some really, really good stuff there, including a low, grumbling voice telling them to get out, they weren't welcome. Well, my mum and dad took that as a challenge and decided that they were going to go back there regardless. So this started a chain of events that, I'll be honest with you, scared the living shit out of me. I didn't sleep for ages after this. So the first thing that happened was we went there. Well, they went there, sorry. And it turned out that the bloke, the low rumbling voice, the whole graveyard was scared of this specific ghost. So no one would talk, no one would say anything, no one would do anything. So they got nothing all the time they went there. And then the next time they went there, Dad got was completely out of character. He was really, really angry, shouting at Mum. That never ever happened. My dad was a perfect gentleman to Mum, always shouting out, and he was really, really angry and completely out of character to Dad. And Mum and the two friends that went with them said that when he turned on them, you could see it wasn't Dad. So obviously they come away. They stop going for a few weeks. I reviewed all the footage, a few little bits, deep voices, but they couldn't make out any words, things like that. And they come away. And then near Halloween, they thought, I know what we'll do. We'll go back to this graveyard and we'll get some stuff and do a Halloween thing. So they went there, and this time they got loads of stuff. Loads of, but almost, I'm watching the video, like all on video camera, so they've got full body. They got voices, they got things happening around them. It was really quite cool. So yeah, that was really good. A couple of days later, they did Mum and some friends decided they were going to do I don't know what it's called, but when they all sit around a table and ask if there's anybody there, and to make contact. So they did that, and about 5 minutes into this, it went deathly silent. Like the whole house was deathly silent, and they had a shelf on the wall, and this shelf all of a sudden came out of the wall about this far, because it came this way first, and then held there for about a second and a half, and then dropped like it had been thrown. And it smashed. I mean, Mum had snow globes up there and old plates and stuff like that, and it smashed it all over the floor. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was sitting there with my younger brother watching telly at the time, we were right next to the shelf. If it wasn't for the fact that I'd seen that and felt, it just felt, the whole room felt really weird. And you know, from that day on, all the time I was going down Mum's, there was a really heavy, I don't really know, aura. It was horrible. Like I wouldn't ever go upstairs at Mum's anymore, because you go up the stairs and it just felt horrible. Like you were constantly being watched, and it was just not a nice feeling. So I ended up not going around there. Let's get burning my lunch. Yeah, ended up not going around there for ages because it just felt absolutely awful. And after that thing coming off the wall, I didn't sleep for bloody ages. Anyways, rambling on. That's my thing for Mike's Halloween thing. As I said, I'm not very good at telling these sort of stories, but hand on heart, that's 100% true. Alright guys, I'll see you next one.
Good evening. Tonight, on Tales from the Spyroverse, we'll tell you the cautionary tale of Monty the dog. A dog who was found in a house completely covered in gore. All the walls had spirographic pictographs drawn on them, and the pup in question was found covered in blood, and no remains of his owners were ever found. To this day, Monty the dog won't go near spirographs, because spirographs are bad.
One day, we were doing spirographs, and we asked Monty, would you like to do a spirograph with us? No, spirograph. Monty says you can fuck right off with your spirograph bullshit. No, spirograph. Fuck off, demon. Or is it a Desmond?
I'd like to tell you the kids kept up the good game, and that Monty did a spirograph. But Life in the Spyroverse isn't a fairy tale.
Oh, Spirograph. No, Spirograph.
It is my great pleasure this evening to be able to present a collection of Halloween knives. I've been struggling a little bit. Had some technical issues. Anyway, we're going to get this video done. It's a simple video. We're going to look at some knives. Starting with this one. The first two Sodbusters belong to my wife. This one I gave her last year at Halloween, because she's a big Halloween fan. Sometimes I give her a knife, she protests, I got too many knives, stop giving me knives. But she accepted this one quite graciously. Well, we'll leave it open. So I thought this year I might see whether I could get her another Halloween knife. And she likes black and she likes spiders, so I saw this one, I knew it was for her. Now, interesting and of note to me was that I noticed that these two blades are actually rather different. This one is well, they're just a bit different, This one's a little wider, the nail nick's different. The grind seems to be more hollow on this one. I think this is still a hollow grind, but it's a bit flatter. And the numbers are different, so it's a thing. 2137 versus 4137. Yeah, so while I was seeking out something for Madame, I saw a fair few Halloween knives, and in the end I decided that I should get this one for myself, the Bear and Sons. And you can see up here where I was hammering on it with the carbide hammer to get it straight. It is fairly straight now in the open position. And I changed the profile somewhat in the blade, messed around with it, sharpened it a lot, scratched it up a bit. It's had quite a lot of pocket time, quite a lot of use. I'm really enjoying it. And it's funny that to get yourself one of these is cheaper than to get yourself the Sodbuster. Well, because this was a Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive that sold out instantly, and I had to go the crafty reseller route because I had to get it for my beloved. And yeah, this is actually engraved with the number 49. I believe it's of 200. The 49er. And then there was this knife that I decided not to get. And then it turned up in the mail. I don't know what happened. I've been having these blackouts. Well, that was weird. Yeah, memory issues. Anyway, apparently I did decide to buy it for myself in the end. Oh, just incredible. Just incredible. I think it's the coolest case knife in my collection, probably. And it's going to be very useful for one thing alone. And that is carving pumpkins. Because otherwise, what do you even do with a blade like that? And So that pretty much completes it. But I do have one more thing to show. What is up with the... Well, like I say, technical difficulties. I mean, this thing with the lights, whatever that's all about is new. But how about this, huh? What's up with this weird alchemical patina on the coffin handle of this ginormous folding knife? Which is also, it's a bit of a weird story how this one came to me, but it's not working out, me trying to tell this story. That's one of the issues I've been having. So anyway, we'll just get on and take a nice look. I mean, that is the perfect time for a power cut, right? The matches rain. There we go. No worries. See? Problem solved. Now, what? How did the... What's this? Where am I? Oh. Wake up. Where are my knives?
You know me, it's frightening how many Spyro books I've published. And here they are, all 4 of them. Get them now from all good Amazon stores. From WC and ZNRZ, we introduce the Tales from the Spyroverse. If you only buy one Spyro book, buy these, which is all of them. To order, just click the links in the description.
My uncle died when I was 19. He'd been sick for a while. We all knew that this wasn't gonna end well. He was only 29, 10 years older than me, 10 years younger than my mother. He was one of the best uncles you could have. And his passing was something that hit me hard. I remember my sister took the phone call and she told me. And that's the point where I began to realize that I was just watching myself do something. I got up, I put on a coat, and I walked out of the house without a word. I cut through a neighbor's yard. I know they hated it, but it was nighttime and I didn't care. And I headed out to a section of road that I often used from getting from one place to another because it was a time in my life when I didn't drive. And it was a stretch where there were no lights. There was no development out there. It was just a road where people used to get from point A to point B. When I finally get out there along that road in the dark, the wind picked up out of nowhere. It wasn't subtle. It hadn't been breezy. Just suddenly there was a wind. And as the trees began to move, as the trees began to rustle, as the wind began to howl between those branches, so did I. I screamed. This was something from the brainstem. This didn't have to do with thoughts or words. This was raw, unfiltered rage. I screamed and I cursed at the gods. And the louder and the harder I screamed, I wailed, I roared, the wind kept pace with me. We fed off of each other. I was part of it and it was part of me. Eventually I collapsed and the wind died down with me. I stood up and I kept walking on that road. And again, just watching myself do it. I wasn't in charge. I found a payphone, called a friend, but he wasn't home. His mom said he was at choir practice. I knew where that was. So I went there on foot. I don't know how long it took me. It was about 3 miles, I guess, in the dark. And I walked into the basement of that church. And they were doing their rehearsal. And I walked in and I stood in the archway. And my buddy looked at me and he just stopped. He didn't say a word. He just kind of nodded at his choir master, said, I gotta go. And he took me out of there. Because he could see on my face I was in a place that nobody wants to be. I'm 60 now. Been a long time since I was 19. I still remember my uncle. I still love him. And I still remember that night where I and the wind howled, where we raged, where we connected on a level that I've never experienced before or since. It was one of my first steps to understand that we all have a connection to the world in a way that's deep down inside us, right down at that brainstem. And there's no separating it. There's no escaping it. It's there, just beneath the surface, waiting for just the right trigger.
Happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing these videos. It's great seeing other people's content. Yeah, that last one, Tetsu Bros, that made me cry a bit, to be honest. That was, that was quite poignant, that. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you everyone who joined in, by the way. I really enjoyed everyone's content. As I said, there was a good range of stuff, and it's what I like. I like a bit of scary, a bit of funny, poignant, sort of serious stuff. It's all brilliant, and yeah, I try to make the mood sort of go up and down, up and down, up and down. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good Halloween, and I'll see you this Saturday for the Spyro special. It's 4 hours long, so get there at 8 o'clock, 8 till midnight. We're going to do a live stream afterwards, and then maybe a drunk after party. Alright? See you then. Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy Halloween. See you later.